This is Alex answering, and it is January 16th, 2017, and in this early morning podcast, I'm going to be focusing my attention on the Mysterious Valley, also known as the San Luis Valley. I have uploaded quite a few videos regarding the events in Costilla County, land rights issues. I've also alluded to the Mysterious Valley, the work of Chris O'Brien, and that it is also believed to be a paranormal valley. And in the end, I actually felt like, being opposed to what Costilla County was doing to the off-gridders, it was like going to war with a demon or an archon. As supernatural as that sounds, the theories that I've had for years since I discovered Costilla County, lived off-grid there for the first time, and came across Chris O'Brien's books and read those, as well as other articles about the San Luis Valley while living there. It was like I was having an experience of not only going to my own truth regarding things of a larger world nature, but tapping into those energies there and feeling the history of conflict, and knowing that that valley was known as the Valley of Death, or the valley in which the spirits walked or dwelled, knowing that it was a vision quest area, and that I ended up there as a result of deep, profound prayer to do my own self-healing after feeling traumatized in my own way. Later, I found others that have gone through a lot of crap in this world, some veterans, some others, it could be a family thing. A lot of people that have gone through some major trauma in their life, at some point or another, many of them have found their way to Costilla County or the San Luis Valley. So I do feel that there is something metaphysical and spiritual about this region. And what I'm going to do now is probably give you a unique perspective that you've never heard from any man or woman about this particular region. And I'm going to be bringing forth different theories and ideas that have already been presented by former residents and authors like Chris O'Brien, and then adding in my own perspective. But what I will say is there's something different about, I just say, the magnetics. There's something about the magnetics. There's something about that part of the planet. And it drew me there initially in 2012. And I didn't go there because of some perceived disaster. You'll notice in my other videos, I talk more about, like this invasion of the body snatchers, children of the corn, the mind virus, the collective attitude of today's day and age. And the counterfeit spiritual people and the counterfeit political leaders, and I really preach an ideology of self-reliance and independence, self-determination, and breaking those chains, those cords with those things that control us. And sometimes going off grid is a part of that, that cleansing, leaving the city abruptly with nothing but a backpack and living off the bare basics. So there was something that after years of searching for the right place, I found myself in the San Luis Valley, in particular Costilla County. Now that is a region that is fairly large. The San Luis Valley is a very large region. It's like 150 miles by so on. So we're going to move beyond discussing Costilla County, because Costilla County is owning a small fraction, probably less than that. But there's something, despite the off-grid turbulence, which is a separate topic, but one I feel was really motivated by an evil spirit, one that had been around for some time, that wanted to prevent community and settlement, like an evil spirit that even seemed to work to get neighbors fighting. And having experienced that first before the code crackdown, I already felt that I became familiar with that evil spirit, that paranormal. Something that wanted to prevent positive community and kept the neighbors feuding. A spirit of revenge, of thievery. And I don't know if this is spoken of by the locals. But let me now go to Chris O'Brien. So when I was there for the first time in late 2012, early 2013, I'm Googling the San Luis Valley. And that's really more how I defined that area, more so in the county, but the San Luis Valley. And I felt that I was there for a reason. And I also wrote or developed 250 slides plus 100 pages. And I went to Mark Passio's Free Your Mind conference, and I discussed the sun and its cycles affecting mankind down here on Earth, war cycles, shifts in consciousness, human trends, even earth changes like earthquakes. Big stuff. And there was something about me being there at the middle of my time, after being there a few months and a few months before leaving, that I focused my effort with a MacBook Pro with a really crappy like solar setup, but I was just enough to power it, and the battery with the inverter from Walmart that broke a few times. I did it though. A MacBook Pro with a cracked screen on top of it that had its own issues. And I was able to put together something that I think will probably be more noticed by the people of the world as time goes on. So I see that as a special place, and I saw my prayers answered. But see, I'm also someone that's been on the path of really questioning, well, what really controls this show? And that means this government, that means this military. Where are the underground bases? To broaden our conversation a little bit wider. The DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, this is a real sensitive area. If you actually have accurate information about ongoing bases, I would stay away from sharing that information in the public if you don't want the government's eye on you. Sometimes ignorance is bliss when it comes to specific information. So I don't have specific information regarding underground bases, but those that have, they have come under the eye of Sauron, if you will. If there's anything true to what Philip Schneider has said, Philip Schneider was also found dead. He was believed to have killed himself. He's also believed to have been someone that was really murdered by the government because of discussing what happened at Dulce, New Mexico, and working underground. And so he discusses things that happened in the late 70s. And see, there's a correlation between the allegations of Philip Schneider and the things reported on by Christopher O'Brien. And even the investigations of a certain Pete Espinoza of Costilla County, the former sheriff. We're going to keep all the off-grid drama out of this. But Pete Espinoza is cited in Chris O'Brien's book with regards to investigating the cattle mutilation wave that hit the Spanish ranchers in a particularly hard way. Boom! And they were like, what the fuck? And there's something about this period that you should know about. With regards to human beings or human females in particular human females of, I would say, a particular kind. Blue eyes, blonde hair. There are many that have reported memories, visions or dreams, and there's actually a book that I bought recently at a thrift store where she's basically recounting the alien abduction stuff. And there are periods in which it's off the charts, the stuff that was reported. So, the government created a false memory act after all this. All those are all false memories. But see, what I want you to know is that there's a parallel with the reported or perceived or hallucinated human abductions dovetailing cattle mutilations. And there are beliefs outside of extraterrestrials with regards to cattle mutilations and it being my lab or a government project. And some people believe that maybe they're testing the radiation from past bombings on U.S. soil where they've tested weapons. And then others believe that it may be, a hybrid alien human military government project to create a hybrid clone army or race or species or entities, that it's been in different stages of evolution. I think this is very possible, being that the cloning technology is out there and they're planning for some weird things in space, promising people that they're going to be on Mars in 10 years. There's something else they're planning. There's a woman named Elizabeth that at one point commented on my channel saying, Alex, you need to get out of there. You have no idea the amount of stuff that's going on underground. And with the Greys and the abductions in the San Luis Valley. It's not safe. Well, I don't know in particular that other places are safer. In a way, I went to Costilla County to seek sanctuary away from what I believe to be a very judgmental world. And I found a sense of peace. It was not without its sense of fear and anxiety. And we're talking about the first time being left there all alone. The constant looking upon the road towards the South Ute Mountain, perceiving the time and space to where armies of death marched and killed, and knowing the history of the Ute Indians accessing horses from the Spanish merchants in Taos. and coming up through the pass, and the devastation that was what is currently now the Rio Grande Ranchos. At one point was home to what some people might even call Pueblo Indians, or Indians without horses, that were not in a warlike state, but were living a certain way for a certain period of time before their competitors, before their another tribe, the Utes or Utes, all of a sudden access firearms, horses, and other things. And I don't think this is to demonize all tribes and all Utes, but to see that this corruption and turning one tribe against another, and then of course you have histories of tribes that already had problems with each other, so it wasn't a big deal for them to take the money, take the weapons, take the horses. But it's like that particular period, pre-civil, post-Civil War period, and then you have the town adjacent to San Luis, Fort Garland, and the history of Fort Garland being set up. They have a museum there, and this is all about setting up a fort to defend against the retaliating Indians. Well, I think isn't that what Fort Worth is? That's just to the left of Dallas, Texas. There's a lot of history, and it takes Dances with Wolves and movies like that. A lot of that stuff played out literally in Fort Garland, and scenes like that. And then tribes working with other groups or mercenaries or merchants to get rid of other Indian tribes that they didn't want there. So with regards to Chris O'Brien and his books, what you get is kind of a snapshot of what was told to him. He also puts in a disclaimer that he believes that some of this information may not be correct, but the Dene or the Navajo, with regards to legends that their peoples had about what is known as Mount Blanca. The Sipapu is also associated with another region in the Four Corners, or in that area, or maybe literally in the state of Arizona. I haven't been to that location, but there is a fair amount of, I believe there's actually controversy about mining or water collection at a very sacred spot, I believe, around the Four Corners. There's also a lot of discussions about fracking and other major groups and corporations moving in on this sacred land. I believe there can be balance between protecting your land against the corporations and allowing people to live alongside or within nature without calling them a virus. Unfortunately, today is not that day. Everybody's kind of lumped in the same category as a result of what the corporations are trying to do. So under the, the guise of protecting the environment, people are being made homeless that formerly were able to live in some of these regions like Costilla County. So I can't shake it. I can't shake that. And then seeing that some people have been really traumatized that have gone through the experience of being kicked off their land. What would want to traumatize them? And what's really the plan for this region as we kind of expand our discussion little by little? So I've mentioned that, yes, Chris O'Brien discussing Blanca, according to at least a tribe, but Mount Blanca being the Sipapu, or the origin of the first man and woman, according to a Native American tribe that resided at one point in the San Luis Valley. This sacred mountain. And if you don't know where that is, it's near the town of Blanca. You see a lot of pictures with, it looks like it's got teeth. Like it's got, what is that mountain? In most cases, that is Blanca. And it is, I believe, is at 160, Highway 160, going from Alamosa to Fort Garland. That is where you get the best view. That's also on your way out of that region. Continuing on 160 through Levada Pass, on your way back into the Babylon. The much more populated section of Colorado, if that's your thing. Walsenburg, Pueblo, Colorado Springs. Oh, yeah. And then they can just drive straight into Lucifer's Mouth and find Denver and all. So we have an underground tunnel connection, with Denver being this FEMA headquarters, or if the worst case scenario, if DC was nuked, the Shadow Elite, for those of you that are familiar with this, they would be operating this country from Denver. I think on the conspiratorial side, some people get way worked up about murals and they stop their investigation. It's like they stare into the abyss, they become the abyss, and they just keep going deeper into the mural like this is some sort of fractal meditation, going, oh my God, okay, let's just step back and just take a pill or something. Here's some water, it's filtered. No BPA, didn't come from a plastic bottle, it came from a glass. You have a network of underground tunnels, and this was disclosed in the late 1970s, and what you don't have are people alive today that are giving you the up-to-date information on the underground tunnels. The people that gave you what little we have are now dead. Does that make sense? Classroom, does that make sense? Are there any questions? Continuing on, there's something called the Taos hum. It's a oscillation, and people hear this in the San Luis Valley. They hear this in Costilla. They hear this oscillation, and many people believe that as the government expanding their underground tunnel networks. There's nothing more dangerous, folks, than actually disclosing potential real actual locations. So thank God I don't know of anything specific, but I will tell you there's something going on. And it extends throughout the state, extends throughout this nation. And you're not going to get information from shows like Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory. That is a way in which they co-opt an idea, and I believe he did that deliberately, and he starts driving around an underground airport or parking garage claiming that he's at some sort of secret base in the Ozarks. Bullshit. What Jesse Ventura did, just like what Alex Jones does with FEMA camps, is they take something that may have a little bit of credibility of truth and they distort the truth, so when people actually do start looking up those things, they find them and they find contaminated information that is not 100% accurate, that in fact may have distortions. Who's going to want to drink out of that, decide Alex Jones himself, out of that punch bowl once he shits in it? So you can find the Rand Corporation underground tunnel maps going from Denver to these various places. And I feel there's something going on in or around Alamosa or areas of the San Luis Valley. And if you look at Alamosa, say go to Walmart, place I parked behind, look at the land behind the Walmart, zoom out. You want to use Google Earth, and you might as well just do this while you're listening to this podcast. You don't get a visual, bring up Google Earth, there you go to satellite, get off map, there you go, satellite, yeah, because you want to be able to see the color. You want to be able to see the terrain, and you'll notice it looks like there may be some stuff buried there in Alamosa. Or there, at the very least, you got natural gas stuff going on. You have an environment that seemingly has been contaminated. And rest in peace, the former Costilla County Commissioner. But there seems to be a pattern also with cancer rates in that region. And I think there's a connection with the farms and the pesticides. And the ranchers that have an interest financially in that region, they don't want the off-gridders to live there, but they themselves may be polluting the environment through the pesticides and whatever chemicals they're using on their crops. And I think that's something that I was already looking at before. So you have a number of things going on, but if Philip Schneider was telling the truth, the guy that worked at Dulce, New Mexico, who claimed to be like an underground tunnel digger, who claimed to have, seen a little alien type stuff, think Roswell, seen what goes on at the levels underground, the hybrid projects. Let's just say that there's a little bit of truth in what he said. And the man was killed, reportedly. I guess there may be some official report that it was a suicide. Oddly enough, I think it was in Wilsonville, Oregon, which is just outside Portland, where I'm from. So I don't know how to say this. But Philip Schneider said that there was a firefight or a battle between the U.S. military and gray aliens at Mount Blanca. That Mount Blanca was a base. Now see, Mount Blanca base, you think about the idea of my lab or human/gray mutual projects in the post-Eisenhower age regarding cloning and then cattle mutilation, if there's any of that, if any of that is true. A partnership between the shadow government and the Greys, really the Archons, but the Greys as they've been called, or reptilians, to clone and alter the human species. And who knows where those, as those clones grow up, where they go. Perhaps to Mars or off-world bases or places where they are, or maybe even inside the Earth. See, I don't want to go too far, but how can I not? See, what I see are overlapping realities that should be discussed in one breath. So let's go back. We have the Rand Corporation documents going, okay, this is what we put out in 74, 75. According to the Rand document, we have Denver, and we have these different major places, Kansas City, Missouri, maybe even Dallas, Texas, maybe in conjunction with other FEMA centers. We know there's Denton down there. I visited Denton, Texas in 2012, which is FEMA Region 6 headquarters. That was scary. Take my ID and ask me what I'm doing there and why are we taking pictures on federal property, and we just want to know what the facility was for. Talk about paranoia. So there are facilities that we know about, and they'll freak out if you walk on that property and perhaps put you in a database, and who knows if there's consequences for that, only time will tell. And then there's the areas that you don't know about that aren't going to be discussed, that if anyone ever does discuss those areas, they're going to get a visit, or they're going to find themselves in a fair amount of hot water. And so what my intuition has kind of guided me to, not be shouting out allegations or certain things that either I can't prove or shouldn't be discussed. And so sometimes ignorance is bliss when you really don't know anything on a top secret level and you're just applying reason and logic using multiple public information sources. So we go from the Rand Corporation documents to the Chris O'Brien books, and I believe that even echoed this rumor of a firefight between the Greys and the military in 1978 or 1979 at Mount Blanca. So, people for years have seen orbs or lights going in and out of mountains. And the question is, first of all, we want to look at all the potentials of what's going on. There is this belief that ascended masters are going in and out of the mountains, and I believe that there are groups, some people would even call them a cult, but I believe there's a group of people in Crestone that sing to the mountains. And certain lights go in and out. So Crestone is at the northern end as you look at Google Earth of the Sangredo Cristo Mountain Range area. You also want to ask yourself, is there something that connects the hollow earth here in Colorado at these various places? Here we have these high points of 7,000 feet, 7,500 feet, 8,000 feet, but there's something majestic and magical, and it's known as the Paranormal Valley. I mean, there are periods in which there was a lot more activity. So is there a reason why the military has potentially, allegedly, located their bases in areas that also seem to be sacred to the Native Americans? And have we seen this pattern before? Well, the answer is yes. Mining's one thing and extracting resources is another. And then, of course, we haven't even covered it yet, but there's a history of gold mining. And there's also technologies in which satellites can locate underground areas or cavities. And they've used this for mining of a variety of resources, this satellite technology. And so it's very possible that they've used the satellite technology to go into certain areas that were already hollow, that maybe even led to the hollow earth, and developed secret military bases. Now I'm going to jump over here real briefly. I talked about on the off-grid side, we have a Louis Bacon character, very wealthy. Hell, looks like a little hybrid himself. I'm just going to come out with it. Dude doesn't look fully human. And so for those of you that are bring up this guy, take a look at that. Take a look at how wealthy he is, and then he's a major player in Costilla County by buying up a lot of land and giving half of it to the federal government and then kicking money down to the Costilla County government. So he's like a shadow government player on the local and international level. Hedge fund manager. Was involved in a lawsuit with his neighbor down the Bahamas. Would this guy be rubbing elbows with the shadow elite that may want to have certain areas preserved for them because they plan... Whether they plan to do something above the ground or below the ground, we really don't know. Now, what I've heard about that area, Rio Grande Ranchos and others, is that there's an aquifer, the world's largest. So that is a major resource. And so when you buy the land, you don't buy the water rights. There might be a reason regarding this aquifer and to drain the aquifer on the parts of the corporations. Then you have the potential of the land being rezoned for BLM, leverage on the national debt, just like Obama's national monuments, all that money that China gives us. That's why those monuments are there. Look at all these fools who don't realize what's going on. That's why so many of these are being signed now. So the question is that why they're clearing out the Rio Grande Ranchos area? Are they going to rezone it for BLM land? And or is this area, Costilla County, being rezoned for the wealthy elite to come and retreat? And not just Costilla County, but Saguache County and other places where they pass land use codes saying if you have 10,000 and 15,000 for occupancy permit and a septic and all that, like really paying them off big time just so you can survive some potentially very challenging things in tomorrow's future. they're cracking the whip. Why is that? There seems to be influences above the counties that are making it harder for a lower income to live there. Why is that? They want the land for themselves. And we look at the land below and we look at the land above. So actual retreats, mansions, and then potential things going on underground and things we don't know about. And I'm purely speculating, but them like relocating to areas to where they may be close to where they can go underground and not have their own bunker, but actually show up at one of the larger ones that say has been in development for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And so, especially in recent years, elaborate, wealthy underground tunnels and bunkers, not like what you've seen on my channel, like, good for like 4 people if they can handle each other's, nonsense for however long they need to be down there. But we're talking about large, elaborate. And the thing is, when you develop those types of shelters, you normally don't want people to know about it, especially the general public. You want people to be away from you. So it makes sense. It makes sense on a level for there to be a push to get the people out of there in Costilla County. The eyes of the desert, if you will. But as we return our attention to this thing called the Taos Hum, which you can read about, Taos is located south by an hour. And New Mexico is also the state where you have Dulce. And Dulce is reportedly a well-known underground base. So it seems like it's possible that there may be a meeting point or military interest underground, possibly in between Dulce and in between Denver. And there could be a connection with the land rights disputes and other plans for the land or underground. And I am nervous talking about this. And I'm glad I don't know specifics. And I think that's all you really need to know. Now, when I talk about, hey, maybe there is a plus to Costilla County surviving the worst case scenario like zombie outbreak, like that's because of its remoteness. As long as you have the things that you need to survive and you can handle remoteness, I think there's a reason why they're there. Now, in addition, they have had ongoing training for soldiers dispatched to Iraq and Afghanistan that fly the jets and even drones. And they do this military training in the San Luis Valley. This is not top secret. So there are more drones that are being tested. And there's also a place on the other side of I-25. It's like their fake Iraqi city. And in that case, they've been trying to get, and I don't know what stage they're at now, more control of the aerospace so they can just straight up start using weaponized drones and blowing stuff up on the ground, practicing destroying villages. That's right, in the state of Colorado, on the part of the military. That's happening literally like an hour, hour and a half or more to the east of the Rio Grande Ranchos in Costilla County. That's some bloody stuff. That's no bueno. That's evil. That's corrupted. And so the off-gridders, for years, they've had C-130s and drones, as well as county surveillance taking pictures all over this area, not to mention the geoengineering. For those that follow that, it went from not being, a big deal to being a big deal. And not only there, but Taos. But again, you also have Rumsfeld. I heard that Rumsfeld has property in Taos. Oh, and then there's the other guy, CNN founder or CNN owner, Ted Turner. And then, of course, I heard there was a head of Exxon, like a Japanese guy with interest in the Taylor Ranch. Okay, this is too coincidental. There are multiple billionaires that are eyeing properties in the San Luis Valley. They have come to a similar awareness as I, but maybe because they have inside information as to things that are going to go down and places that'll be safe. And so they are preserving, if you will, the land for themselves. And as much of it that they can control, both underground, and that would include corporate access to aquifers and other resources and fracking, and above ground using land rights disputes or land code changes to kick out the poor to make it only accessible and available to the rich. And welcome to part 2 of our discussion on the mysterious valley in the San Luis Valley. And so in recap, I am bringing several things to the table: the allegations of human abductions, cattle mutilations, these things occurring in particular periods, seemingly cyclical, a wave in the late 70s, early 80s, allegations of a firefight, battle between the gray aliens and the military in Blanca, 1978, allegations made by a Philip Schneider, who was found dead 10 to 15 years later. He claimed to be a operator of the underground tunnels, Dulce, New Mexico. I raise a lot of caution with regards to speaking about any specific information that you have regarding this and how sensitive this is to the government for obvious reasons. But I am using my common sense and speculating based on available information. And so I think it's highly possible that you have a connection with this, what we call the war on off-the-grid living, because of this interest in the land above and below. We have the RAND documents from 1974 and others showing underground tunnel bases or freeways running from Denver to another place. And then here we have the San Luis Valley, which also happens to be home of a huge water resource, the aquifer. And we also have a state that is rich in controversy with regards to fracking and corporations using the environment. And a lot of the heavy-handed politics about that, but there definitely is a lot of money in this state right now. And when we look at Denver, it is more important to look at the fact they've been building up for something for a long time, for Denver to be the capital of something, and the reason why the CIA relocated there, and the coming threats to the West and East Coast, and we are talking about World War III. And we are ramping up to something. And so when I hear about people being told that, hey, you built your home a long time ago, it's not up to code, you got to go. When I see the idea of people being removed from their land incrementally over a period of time, but specific areas, it leads me to think that there's something going on underground. And there's something that they're planning for the elite above ground, whether they choose to have a bunker or not. Now, if we go back ancient times, we might see a whole different Colorado with a whole different climate. So imagine, if you will, the Rio Grande Ranchos in Costilla County, what that may have looked like when it was a forest. And at one point it was. And has the earth itself moved its position or its axis between that point in time and to where it is now? And the question is our planet in a state of change physically on its axis or poles to where, we're going into a new terrain now? The government has been forecasting a pole shift. And I don't actually think that this is disinformation. This is something that's more long-term, and there's also great debate, as you know, as well as I do, with regards to whether a pole shift would be quick or whether it would be gradual. Basically, whether civilization would see the effects. And obviously, for people that live along the coast or in certain areas, they would be seeing the effects, but there's also the effects of the changes of the climate, and the climate is very much directly affected by the changes in the sun. A lot of people have been distracted into thinking that it's all affected by mankind. I believe that when you're looking at what comes out of the cars and this fuel dependency, you're looking at pollution. They want us polluted. There's a big difference between that and that causing global climate change, which is really caused by the rise and fall of the solar cycles. There's propaganda out there that if someone has that view that they're an agent of the oil companies, this is unfortunate. That in and of itself is its own witch hunt. Say, well, if you don't think like us, and you're looking at things like this, which are in reality more based on nature, looking at the sun, then you're denying that there's an issue here. No, I'm not denying that there's an issue here. There is an obvious reason why they want to keep us fuel dependent. And there are technologies that the government has with regards to flying saucers that it's known to have, admitted to have. So a lot of the things that people think are alien, for example, that are physical, the lights, for example, are either, in more cases than one, something controlled by the government or something holographic. With regards to the Phoenix lights and so many people seeing an event that may have been an actual test of technology. And who knows, maybe there's a little bit of that going on with regards to some of the things people have seen in the San Luis Valley. Hard to tell. But what we do know is that you have this history. And I was starting to talk about the pole shift reality, potential. So this world, this place in Colorado, what do you think? What kind of civilization do you think was here 10,000 years ago? Or 100,000 years ago? Or 1,000,000 years ago? Or more? Let's go 500 million. And that land that we would currently identify to be the Rio Grande Ranchos, if it was to be, put back to where it was, and we were to see all the technologies that were going on, would we find anything underground? And is there a reason? Is there something underneath Denver that was seized upon a very long time ago? Is there any connection between what some people might call alien technology and Native American sites that have been discovered by the U.S. military, and or reasons why the U.S. military is in certain areas of the Middle East looking for certain technologies, certain ships, certain crafts, certain stargates? See, the Stargate discussion opens up a whole can of worms. What I can say is I started watching Stargate SG-1 from the first season forward in just like the last few months. And now I have the first 4 seasons. And so you have a lot of predictive programming ways that perhaps you're being shown the truth, but it actually can get a little disturbing, especially when scenes from Stargate end up in your dreams. But there seems to be a huge parallel and almost a story of the Anunnaki fallen gods coming to the ghoul in the Stargate series, and constant allusion reference to underground U.S. military bases where this transportation to other worlds is taking place. And things underground, things top secret. And then you look at the idea of them bringing out truth and then scrambling up the facts and locations. And so it's kind of out in the open, but it's scrambled. Or bringing it out in Hollywood or sci-fi, so if anyone actually does talk about the real programs, everybody thinks they're referencing a movie. So with regards to Stargate SG-1, which came out in 1996, of course, after the movie in 94 with Kirk Russell, but now with Richard Dean Anderson of MacGyver, now in the series that kicked off in 96, and I think it went on for 10 seasons. There is some very interesting stuff that was written in those 1990s plots that really seem to come out in what some people call exopolitics, ufology. And then one person can wonder, well, did one influence the other? And then we also see things like V the miniseries, both the original and the remake, as well as America the miniseries, which doesn't have any alien theories. Regardless, it has the theory of being occupied and the mind control, hypnosis taking place to that population that is going through a Red Dawn 13-part miniseries, basically. So yeah, there's definitely ways in which they use pop culture to use propaganda, in ways in which truth is embedded, and the wise one can see and even see where they're trying to lead people. Oh, look, SG-1, leading people in this direction that they're the good guys, that the Black Ops are the good guys, and the bad guys are the people that want transparency. They built into the plot, this guy wants, you guys need to be shut down because you know how much you cost the government every day? Like billions. Like, shouldn't the public know about that? Well, geez, here we have CERN, and people are wanting to get information about this and how much energy it's using and why. Is it trying to open up a portal for some demon to walk on through? Because it sure sounds sci-fi when we hear about CERN and things like that. And then we look at things like Stargate SG-1, where they promote it as a good thing. Stargate is a necessary thing to defend the Earth. Yes, they're constantly defending the Earth, and they're going to all these galaxies. They're trying to make treaties also with all types of aliens just to get technology. And we're talking about the New World Order. We're talking about the U.S. military. We're talking about the Pentagon. We're not talking about good guys. We're talking about the shadow government being portrayed or portraying themselves in Hollywood as good guys. So those are the folks, whatever Stargate SG-1 is really about, that are above ground and may have an interest literally in the San Luis Valley. Pinch yourself, because this is how real it gets. It would make sense to me to have surrounding rural areas, hours from Denver, to where underground someone could be shuttled from one location to another, and or for there to be potential teleport technology at certain places, if it exists. Dulce is not a place that I intend to visit. I can tell you that they have these conferences that I've been told about. Apparently the locals and others, they know about these conferences in Dulce, New Mexico. The vibe I got, is that a lot of these places in Colorado are already starting to be inhabited by former intelligence. People that are in on the know, people that have already chosen certain areas, and Utah and Arizona, other places, to bug out. Some of them do it early. Some of them don't really know the time, day, or place. Some of them may be deluded by their own politics when the shit's hitting the fan. But sometimes we can detect that in others. And so I can kind of pick up on that. There is this interest, and sometimes they come across the information on their own through common sense and their own searching, and sometimes they find out, well, we have this military installation over here because there's a plan to have these workers, and I'm just speculating, but shuttled back and forth from where they're residing to where they're working, and in some cases it being one and the same. We have government workers that are working in the environment in which they're living, and those would be the elaborate, secret, private, residential / government military, deep underground bases. So you have residential, you have government, the idea of both back and forth. And what is it that they're preparing for to be happening above the ground? Think about that carefully. Think about that very, very carefully. Think about aerial bombardment. Talk about a mass poisoning of the population. Even mine weapons being used on the American population by those superpowers. And we're not talking about those coming with the Quran, but we are talking about China and Russia. And we really look at what they're wargaming for in the future of space weapons. It's going underground and operating underground while the people are massacred above ground and there's nowhere to run. I know this sounds frightening to you, but this is what they're bugging out for. There are people who are actually going to allow certain things, in my opinion, to happen to this country, like NORAD with 9/11 in a stand-down order, where you're going to see it replay itself here. It's like, how did that happen? Really? And what? China built the technology, the software that ran our EMP defense bullshit? Of course, it won't be the internet then. It'll all be lights out. And the headhunters will be out. And the stories will develop of the people that go missing, as some of the oldest professions come back to America. Now, whether or not those underground will be safe in the end, that's another debate. Whatever's going to play itself out is a long-term plan. I think it's going to lead us to this one world government solution. People, literally down, once they go through the trauma of what happens above the ground for a period of a few months or a few years, they'll be willing to do the unthinkable. In some cases, would they be willing to take a microchip from China with $100,000 loaded on it? There's the person that I have interviewed that has shared his vision of America's occupation. He also shared that as well. They would come with $100,000 and they would offer it in a chip. It would come from China all along. The IBM connection coming to full fruition in a very strange roundabout way. Boom. And he also envisioned the Continental Divide being the actual place in this country to where the enemy, i.e. the Chinese, are stopped in their tracks. People come together. People arrive from all over America at the Continental Divide and some of these places, and they stop the advance. This is what Leon saw. He never gave a date. He saw Putin, though, rising in popularity and playing a huge role in this, and I see this as well. And I've identified the 2020s or the 2025 time range in which I see this conjunction with the next solar cycle linked to these explosive wars, and even rise in supernatural activity, or the evil in men and the evil behind these wars that steer them. Some call it the dark occult. Some call them other names. But in truth, you could even say that those that dig the deepest bunkers are worried the most. For I will face whatever is to come from the sky or otherwise. And so you see this government interest in the bunkers and in setting up a scenario and then ensuring, though, in their mind that they weather the storm possibly based on information that certain areas in America aren't going to be invaded or aren't going to be under attack. Then instead it may be West Coast cities or major cities. And CNN will be there and RT will be there saying foreign troops are here to help. They're searching for the domestic terrorists that have been fighting the BLM. You'll see RT and others turn on the Americans. You'll see the bystander effect. You'll see Americans with their bystander effect towards the Middle Eastern victims of war, how the world turns against it. You'll remember my warnings. You'll remember these podcasts. So I'm working night and day with an agenda to help you. And as aspects of the government find themselves, dude, have you heard about what this dude's saying over here? How does he know that? I'm speaking from my intuition. And if you can see that I am gifted, at least in that level, man, turn away from your evil deeds. This is about a war for our souls. You don't want to participate in promoting the stage manners Third World War. And you're going to see this promote to nationalism. This war with China, war with Russia, it's going to build. You don't see it yet because they haven't really dropped the bomb yet. And I mean the information, disinformation war bomb. You'll see Alex Jones and other Pied Pipers and Donald Trump go in different directions when they are literally in bed with those they say are the enemy. That would make people like Hillary Clinton and Alex Jones in cahoots. That would make Donald Trump and Putin in cahoots on a real sense while they later prepare for war with each other. Donald Trump and his ties to China and ways he's helped China in the past and will help China while also declaring war, currency war, trade war, tariffs. Come on, China, bring it. Hey, Taiwan, how you doing? China saying, don't cross that red line. No, seriously, you're about to fuck up big time, motherfucker. I said, stop. You got a face-to-face showdown going on as they test weapons in the South China Sea as China is set to have dominance over space 2020, 2021, head of the New World Order, and Russia and China in the war game drills. I mean, it's all building. It is all building. And the very people that are helping take us to this direction may be planning to relocate in aspects of the San Luis Valley. If this started to make sense, if there's anything true behind the underground bases and tunnels, and a knowledge that they're going to have a controlled war, they're going to allow China to attack, they're going to allow the EMP, and they're not going to let it spread beyond a certain geography in the United States. They'll even control things on the other side, to where even Chinese and Russians are overtaken at some point, or they're stranded and they're begging to go back and not be killed and go back to their own government. As they go, okay, now let's just have a one world order. Let's merge with machines and rebuild American infrastructure with the self-driving cars. Welcome to the age of the Jetsons. Hello, new man, 2045. You're seeing where I'm going with this. It's like, okay, let's destroy it and then let's rebuild it. Let's have our new Atlantis. And so that's getting to another conversation after the bombs drop and after the smoke clears. Are we really going to be free, or after the solar flares, or are we going to end up in the next level of the robot apocalypse? Literally slaves to this robot army. They literally dispatch, and they talk about the Amazon warehouses, whether you've caught up with this or not only in Amazon drones, but Amazon warehouses, where it's like these flying Death Stars above communities, where the drones go back and forth for the commonly sold dildos, products, blow-up dolls, Cheetos, and other things. And don't forget the Slim Jims. New iPhone. That's right. New tracking device brought to you by a drone. It's a front for something else. And so is this Elon Musk space thing. So, yeah, there seems to be something concentrated in this Four Corners area, and then heading over to Denver, and then heading, south all the way to New Mexico, and then we got Utah. It's like splintering out ways I don't know, but can feel. And then you have the Taos hum, the oscillating sound that periodically comes and goes that no one has ever really been able to explain. This is the mysterious valley. And you could even say that the Eye of Sauron itself has its gaze set upon this land and region for the things that are planned to come. And I think that it's no accident there are so many different overlapping issues that we have come to discuss. I'll now bring this podcast to a close. Alex Ansary here, sign off for January 16th, 2017.